welcome everybody to the Shifting Gears podcast. It's a new podcast I'm trying, and I'm the Junk Man, and I have my longtime friend and the Doc of Shock and the Duke of Spook, SkullKrusher. And you may know me from my how-to videos and things, but if you're new to the channel, this is something new I want to try. Get some conversation going. Just want to talk about anything automotive related, motorcycle, anything that interests us in the world. And I want to introduce my co-host and good friend, engineer, SkullKrusher. And tell us a little bit about yourself. Let the audience know, like, kind of what you're into, and you can even go into kind of how we met.
Well, I grew up on a farm like you did, and went to the same school. I think we met because we all hung out in the same parking lot at school, the north parking lot.
I was going to say there was one. There was two parking lots there. There was the regular parking lot and the north parking lot. And when you say the cool kids were in the north parking lot, no, I don't know. We weren't that cool, were we?
No.
But anyway, yeah. So yeah, well, and you know, briefly, you know, what do you do? Where'd you kind of go to school, or what'd you go to school for? I guess not necessarily where you went. Nobody cares about that, but.
Well, after high school, I went into drafting, and I've been drawing stuff for about 20 years. Got stuff all over the world, from buildings to grain bins to screw conveyors.
Yeah, so you'd say your kind of experiences in that realm, you've seen a lot in somewhat the engineering field, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, you know, what just popped in my head after talking about hanging out in that north parking lot got me thinking about the cars we used to drive, and then that made me think, like, what is your favorite car? It made me think what my favorite cars are, and it may not be cars we owned, but you know, maybe cars we've driven. You know, maybe we got to borrow a car, or test drove a car, or it was friends, or, you know, relatives or something in there. And I thought that'd be good to talk about. I kind of going down memory lane there for a little bit. What was one? We'll talk about many of them here. But what was one of your first kind of cars that kind of left an impression on you, good or bad? Really, it doesn't have to be even a great car. I mean.
Well, ones I owned was an '86 Somerset, and they were like Grand Ams and what was the other one? Grand Prix back in those days, and I like that thing because it had the electronic dash in it.
That was a Buick, wasn't it? That was a Buick.
Yep, it was a Buick. It didn't have like your normal dial dash. It had it gave you a number, and it kind of reminded me of Knight Rider, actually.
Ah, okay. Well, and you know, that show was, well, in rerun syndication, but it hadn't been off the air for that long, honestly.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, I don't know that I remember that car of yours, to be honest. Maybe I do. I don't know if I ever rode in it, to be honest.
No, I don't think you rode in it. I was trying to think. I do know it's technically a 4-seater, although the two in the back are very uncomfortable.
Okay, basically you can't have any legs.
Yeah, not enough leg room. But I did one night after a football game. We came back, and I was the only one out of town that still had my car to drive home. Everybody else, I don't know, rode the bus or something that day. We managed to get, I believe, 10 kids in that car.
That seems like some kind of like, YouTube and all that and TikTok and whatnot didn't exist back then, but that seems like, see kids, if we got any youngins here, see, this is what you did when nobody was looking, because there was no internet and no TikTok, no Twitter, no Instagram. Of course, Vine's dead. There's none of that. No YouTube to share that on. It was all, you had to be there. Right? Well, yeah, like I said, I don't remember that car.
Well, I had that car, let's see, well, the last year that I had that car, it was not a good year, because it would have been my junior year. I actually blew one of the pistons through the engine.
What engine did that happen there? You remember?
It was a V6. I think they were like 2 point somethings. And it blew at 132. And I literally blew the piston out the side of the engine.
Now, see, I wished I was there for that. And, of course, we didn't have camera phones and all that to document it. So you just got to take, I guess, your word for it.
So then we replaced the engine in it, and then I ended up wrecking it after a snowstorm.
Oh, okay, not hit a deer? Because that was common back in our day.
I couldn't see out in an intersection because the snow piles were too high, and pulled out in front of somebody.
Yeah, that's not good. Well, I tell you what, since we're on some GM cars of the mid '80s, one car that comes to mind, and I know you'll remember this one, is 1985 Chevy Malibu with the police package. It was an old police car, and we used to buy old police cars as field cars or beater cars, cars that never left the county, and there wasn't nothing really super special other than with that car, other than it was the police spec or police package, which basically meant had the bigger radiator, had the larger alternator. I think it was like an 80 amp alternator, or maybe 100 amp alternator for that matter. But larger radiator. Now here's the other thing: it had the 305 in it, but it had, I think, the limited slip rear end, and the interior was rubber floor mat front and rear. Of course, vinyl seats in the back. It did have a cloth seat up front, but the funny part is, for the longest time, you couldn't open the rear doors from the inside because it didn't have, or the door handles were inoperable. Just the latch mechanism or the hook that hooks onto the handle were not hooked up because, like I said, that's where you put the prisoners and stuff. But it had the holes in the roof and the A-pillar for the spotlight and all that, and then for the what am I calling it? The grate, the steel grate, keep the bad guys from getting at the driver and all that. But and then it had holes drilled in the dash where like all the radios and stuff. And this would have been before, of course, they had computers in the car, or if they did, it wasn't like a laptop stand or anything. But yeah, you probably remember that because the old black and white, or actually it was kind of a real dark blue, but you could still see the outlines when they peeled the police and serve and protect on it. You know what? Were you along? No, it was. I think Jeff was along for that. Yeah, it was Jeff. You weren't, but I think you heard about this. A story I'll tell about in that car because it was a police car, and at the time. And you can corroborate this, those kind of cars, the Caprice and the what am I thinking? The Crown Vics were just coming into their own, but still, like the Caprice, those Chevys were still common police cars you saw around. So it kind of got people on edge or to slow down and everything, and I remember using, it was our, it was our mail car, the mail car, because my mom was a rural post master or postman, I guess I should say, and had the orange flashing light in there, just in the glove box, for on the mail route. And there was one night that we're driving around, cruising around, and we saw one of my classmates, and I don't know if he just didn't recognize the car or forgot or whatnot, but passed him, and then I just turned around in the middle of the street, and I think Jeff was with me. I told Jeff, throw the light on top. He plugs it in the cigarette. It's an orange light. It's not, the red and blue. Yeah. But anyway, all of a sudden, he was driving this K5 Blazer, and I think he had the mufflers cut off or whatever. Anyway, you just heard him romp on it, and then I stepped on it and just started kind of chasing him, and he eventually pulled over, and I think he had his girlfriend in the car at the time, and I had my that big old mag light that everybody had at the time. That was a bright flashlight, and I was shining it out the window right in his side view mirror, and so he couldn't really see who it was back there. I got up there, and he was like, "You mother," and I think I forget who that was. Oh, that was LJ. Actually, that's who that was, and his girlfriend at the time. And I mean, he was dropping bricks, and I'm like, I was laughing. I was just, I can't believe that worked. I mean, you should know this car, and it's an orange light. It's an orange flashing light. But the other thing about that car, you probably remember we used to because it was kind of a field car, run around beater car, going in and out of, as back where we're from, there's like 2 paved roads in the county basically. Yeah. So most everything's dirt roads. So we always ran, they were 14-inch rims, but we'd run like some really grabby mud tires on the back. So when it rained, you could get around in that car a little bit. But now I keep this on the DL a little bit, but I can say that car, we imitated a little bit of the Dukes of Hazzard, probably more like what Roscoe would do. It got a little bit of air once in a while, but that's kind of. I mean, that car was. The 305, as you know, you're kind of a Chevy guy a little bit. It's kind of a dog motor, but that was a fairly lightweight car. It got up and moved, and I forget what transmission it had in it, but I think it had a little bit deeper gears in the rear end and stuff because it was more of a cruiser. It wasn't a highway patrol, so it got up and went for what it was. It had. When we bought it, it had 180, probably not 180, probably 150,000 miles, and I know we put another 100 and something, and parked it originally because the gas tank ran out, or rusted out with like 350,000 miles on it. And I know I personally put at least 3 sets of like wheel bearings in it, and God knows how many brake jobs, but never rebuilt the engine. I mean, it was starting to burn oil by the end there, but that was, for that kind of car, mid-'80s GM wasn't the best years for them, as most people would say. I had a lot of fun in that car, but that wasn't my first car, But I was, you mentioned your Somerset, but didn't you, or was it your folks's or something, but you used to drive a Subaru Brat, didn't you? Or something?
No, that was a Justy.
Oh, it was, okay. All right. But it kind of had carburetor problems, as I remember, or something like that.
A lot of people, I think I know what you're talking about. A lot of people thought that, or they thought I didn't know how to drive a stick. But that engine was not very good cold starting. It needed like a good 20 minutes to warm up.
Well, because it's Japanese.
But yeah, in the winter, that thing, you needed a good 20 minutes. When you had only a 30-minute lunch, that doesn't help things. But that car was kind of surprising. I can't remember how many gears. I think 3, but I'm not sure.
Just a 3-speed? I'm gonna look it up here. Let me see.
But it had a push button 4-wheel drive on the top of the shifter.
Huh.
And it was 4-wheel drive. And I can tell you. So we had it down. We were down at the river.
Hold up before you go. You're thinking it was a 3-cylinder, not 3-speed. I'm kind of looking up here if Wikipedia is anything to go off of. Okay, so it was a 3. Well, go on with your story, but that makes me think of another 3-cylinder car.
Well, so if I was down at the river with Shriner and Joe and probably Sean, and we were gonna go fishing. And we were all the way at this back of this in this river bend, going to this river bend, okay. And there was this 20-foot mud hole. And so I get up to it, and I press the button, and I just give her heck, and I go through the mud hole, and I get to where we're going, and I stop, and I shut it off, and I walk back, and I'm like, I had to walk back because no one was behind me, and I thought that was kind of weird. And so I got back there. Well, there's Shriner he had an S10.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going through that. And I'm like, well, why? And he goes, because you just went over a T-post. And at the end of this 20-foot section, there was a bunch of T-posts, and I just ran straight over it and didn't even know it.
didn't bust the oil pan or pop a tire or anything.
No, but that thing was surprising. That thing was built pretty good. Like I said, the only problem I had with it was in the winter, it didn't like to. Yeah, it was cold. Just start up and go. It needed some time to warm up, and I do believe I did catch air in that thing because I was hunting in it. I was between fields, and I was going to the next field, and I went through an intersection too fast, and I didn't know it was pitched as much as it would. Otherwise, I would have never hit it as fast as I did, and I caught air in that thing.
Just to give listeners out there a little context here, is and I'm looking it up here because I didn't know much about this. That's one that's I don't know much about these, but this had either a 1.0 or 1.2 liter 3-cylinder with either a manual transmission or a CVT, which yours would have had manual in it, and 4-wheel drive, and an on-demand. I'm reading about here. Yeah.
And I can tell you can get, let's see, they're also 4-seaters with a hatchback, and we got 7 in there, but we had to have the one person right in the hatched part. I literally had to close the hatch on them.
now that brings up a funny memory of another Japanese car where I rode in the back of the hatch. Only this was it wasn't even a 2+2. It was just a 2-seater. Derek's one of his, I think it was the brown one, his 300Z that was a 85, I think, or 84. That was the talking car too. Yeah, but it was. I don't know that you were along. Well, anyway, we all wanted to go probably the liquor store or something, out of Juniata into Hastings from Juniata, and and what the hell? Well, we couldn't take my car because I had my Fiero at the time, and that was maximum 2 people, of course. but at least his you had the hatch, so I laid back in the hatch, and when he thought a cop was coming, there was kind of like the other hatchbacks. There's a like a cargo cover thing to keep the sun off or shit. So I would pull that across to hide me back there, in case he got pulled over or something. They couldn't see it. There was me laying in the back there. Because that one wasn't the 2+2. His other one was the 2+2. So again, it didn't really have leg room, but at least you kind of like sit Indian style back there or something.
Yeah.
But another one for me would be now it would be my Fiero, and that of course I have several of them, but my red 88, that was a fun little car to drive. I still have it. Just I don't really drive it because I have too many other cars and it's not practical right now. That'll be that'll probably be my. I'll be one of those old. Instead of being an old fart that buys a Corvette, I'll start driving my Fiero. That'll be my retirement car, I guess. But quick, it only weighed like 2,500 pounds, and it had the 4-cylinder in it, but 5-speed, but it had 100 horsepower and a light little car. That's about all you needed. But speaking of lightweight cars and 3-cylinder cars, your Justy made me think of your Geo Metro and the story that goes along with that.
That car was actually a really, really good car.
Well, for what you were using it for, you were driving like 3 miles a day,
Yeah.
When you had that back and forth to the job you had at that time.
Yeah, there isn't really much to tell you about that car. I mean,
how it I guess ended a little bit.
But the story behind it was so you and I went skiing, and we lived in Kearney at the time.
Yep.
And so I had 2 vehicles. I had a 98 Ford Ranger, I think it was.
Yeah, it was a 98.
And so we took that instead of this Geo all the way to Colorado, and I left the Geo parked in front of my apartment.
On the street, right?
On the street. Well, we go for the weekend. We leave on Friday, and we come back on Sunday, and we get back, and the first thing I kind of notice is like my car's not out front. And I grab my remote from my garage door, because I had a garage at the apartment complex, and I went back up there because I was like, well, maybe I left it in the garage, and I just forgot about it.
After 2 days, you forget where you parked it. Anyway.
And I went out there, I couldn't, and it wasn't there, and I came back into the apartment, and I go, dude, where's my car?
And this is before the SkullKrusher movie. So.
And so then I noticed there was a lot of messages, so I listened to the messages, and there was the cops calling me. So someone it sounded like, I shouldn't say someone, it sounded like there was a party that had gone on down the street from me, and they obviously got drunk and everything, and decided that it would be fun to go down the street and start flipping cars. So they came up and they flipped my car, and then they flipped like 2 or 3 others up the street from me. And really the only thing that really got damaged was my driver's side window.
Well, maybe the mirror, but the reason it was
the mirror too.
Yeah, but see the reason it was gone is when they tipped it over, it was almost in the middle of the street, so they called the tow truck and to tow it.
Well, actually, the reason it was gone was because they couldn't get a hold of me. So they had it towed because they couldn't just leave it there in the street,
right.
and they couldn't leave it with the window busted out. That was what I was told. They couldn't leave it with the window busted out because then they would have been responsible if anything was taken. Which the only thing in that car worth taking at the time was I had a 5-disc CD changer, and if you knew that it was in the car, and that was a big if because it was hidden really well, it would have taken you.
Well, hold on.
It probably took you all weekend to tear that thing out of the dash.
Yeah, but hold on. For some context here, who in the hell would think at that time, because CDs were still the thing and disc changers were not cheap, who would put a disc changer in a 3-cylinder Geo Metro? I mean, this was.
Well, I remember buying it. It was like $100. I bought it from Walmart.
Yeah, but see, that's
still. I had bought it for the Ranger, and I think I had it in there, and then I think I ripped it out for whatever reason, and so I just had it laying around, and I was just like, because the Geo just had a radio,
right?
And I was just like, well, I've got the CD changer, and might as well just use it. So I think Zur was the one that helped me put that in.
Probably.
We ripped it apart and put it in, and I mean, that wasn't the worst car stereo we've ever put in, but that was definitely up there.
Well, I remember when you brought that home, because you bought that car for, I think, $300 or something?
No, I think it was $500.
$500, whatever. Same difference. But I remember, we bought, some just basic tune-up parts. And, of course, you only need 3 spark plugs and 3 spark plug wires and a little teeny tiny distributor. I mean, if I remember, it was like less than $100 to put tune-up parts on, change the oil. We might even put brakes on it for under $100, because the little drums was like bicycle brakes on that thing. But I tell you, other than that 3-cylinder sounded just off, that I mean, it actually kind of got up and went, and it was like driving a little go-kart.
It was, and I do remember. I could get it up to 70, but it did not like that. You could go down the highway, but it was not one that you'd take down the interstate or anything.
No, I forget what year that was, but I think it was like maybe a 90 or 91.
Somewhere in that. I want to say it was like an 88, but
maybe it was a late 88.
I can't guarantee you that. And it had a god-awful miles on it, and I was surprised the engine lasted like it did, and I can't remember, I owned it for maybe a year or so. I can't remember how long I owned it, and I sold it for I think I sold it for the amount I got, or either that or I sold it for like $250 more. Well,
I know
maybe.
I know you at least got your money back.
Yeah. I might have sold it. I might have made $250 on it.
Probably.
But the gal that bought it from me, she drove it for another year or two, and then the engine finally broke in it. And even though I didn't know her personally, I knew her through friends. I'd see her every once in a while, and after it broke, she came up and asked me if I had another one.
Well, see, while you were telling that story, I was like, wait a minute, I could have swore that somehow you acquired 2 of them somehow, but no, that's right.
I did. We bought a second one for parts.
That's right. There was the parts car for like $100.
It was a parts car that I never actually used for parts, and I don't even know. So Zur was gonna pull that to the junkyard, I don't, because I never actually used it for parts. I don't even. It just sat, and Zero picked it up to take it to the junkyard, and his cousin Paul like, hey, what's wrong with this car? And I can't remember if it was the engine or if what was wrong with it. And so Jeff told him, and he's like, oh, well, does he want to sell it? I'll buy it.
And I think it had a rod bearing out, honestly.
That or something like that, or timing or something. I can't remember.
Yeah, that could be, because it had a teeny little timing belt in it, and maybe that was it. Is that a broken timing belt? It's not that, and it wasn't an interference. I remember that it wasn't an interference engine, so. So
anyways, Jeff's son is halfway to the junkyard, and he calls me, and he goes, so, do you want to sell this car? And I go, well, I thought that's what I was doing. And he goes, no, my cousin wants to buy it. So I sold that car for, I think I only paid, that was the one I paid $250 for, okay, I think. Maybe. And so I got it $250 out of it, which is, I think back then, I know it is now, but I think back then that's junk price, so.
Yeah, probably. Scrap price. That brings up a funny deal about that time, where we were in our lives, and the friends and acquaintances and whatnot around us. We had, I can think of other car stories this way, where it's like these cars just got passed around amongst. I mean, we'll get Derek on here, and on here, and got to tell some mighty Nissan stories. But I mean, that was kind of the community pickup. I mean, it's his. But, when he decided he finally was going to get rid of it, he sold it to, I think he sold it to Czar, or Tom had it for a while. It changed hands a couple times, and I guess that's what I'm, and then finally it went to the heap, or the scrap heap. But, and then it was like, years later, it's like, I kind of wish I had that back. I don't know. High-functioning hoarders, I guess we are, in a way, right? But, yeah. That Geo Metro, got his tinny, rattly, but man, perfect little commuter car for that kind of use. I mean, just sipped fuel, as I remember,
Yeah, it was... I want to say it was like 35 miles a gallon.
I think it was a little bit more.
Or more. Maybe that one was 40. I can't remember. It was crazy.
Well, and it was a carbureted version too. It wasn't even EFI.
But for a carbureted version, it sure acted like an EFI because, not. Some people have a lot of problems with carbureted versions.
Well, yeah. That's the thing. It always started. And again, when we did that tune-up, we only did those parts because, well, they're probably the factory parts on it, given who, but, we didn't really mess with the carburetor. We just, put, like I said, that some of that, again, it had a distributor on it, and it had electronic ignition. It wasn't modern enough for that, but I guess I do remember, because I changed the plugs and stuff. I remember the plugs were pretty ate up in it, but it's like, but that, it was running. You drove it home,
yeah,
kind of thing when you bought it. Yeah, let's see. Trying to think another one here on my side of the fence. Like I said, the old police car was one that's kind of memorable. I mean, my first car, and those that are familiar with me, I mean, I got a whole page dedicated on my website. You can read about it. But yeah, my Valiant, I bought that for $300, and of course fixed it up, modified it, kind of. I had the neon lights in it and under it all long before all that Fast and Furious stuff kind of ruined that, subwoofers, and I think, actually, Yeah, I wasn't a huge audiophile, but, I spent some money in the stereo. And that was the thing. Speaking of stereos and stuff, and your 5-disc changers story kind of made me think of that. Is my Valiant, I had I had 6 speakers in the interior, so I had kind of, and from the factory it just had the one speaker in the center dash because it wasn't optioned to have stereo, which would be one speaker in the front, one speaker in the back. But anyway, I put some in the kick panels, had some tweeter. I had 2 ways. So I had tweeters up in the, like on the A pillars, some like 6-inch or 6.5s on the in the kick panels, and then of course some good 6x9s in the back and the deck lid, and then I had 2 15-inch, and I can't remember the brand I had. They're probably Rockford Fosgates. That they were the thing to have at the time, as I remember. I mean, audiophiles will probably laugh, but anyway. And then I think I had those. Those were in the trunk. I built some custom boxes back there because it had full size cars like that had full size spares, and those laid in the floor of the trunk, and I didn't want to cover that up. So anyway, I made it so they fit right into the sides, and 2 15-inch. I think I had those on like 1,000 watt amp. Then I had an equalizer running all the other speakers in the 4 speakers, and then the tweeters. They had their own crossover or whatever to just filter out and leave the highs like you would. And then I had CD player, and then I had some switches so I could toggle the inputs, just literal toggle switches. And then I had an 8-track player and CD player and 8-track. I guess that's all I had. I didn't and then I had a cassette adapter in case I wanted to play my cassettes. But and I had it so I could run like the 8-track through the amplifier and everything. And then I had that little 5-inch black and white TV mounted on the center console for the back passengers, and then TV antenna mounted on the trunk.
Well, and we used to watch that in the north parking lot.
Exactly, over at lunch hour. Yeah, we turn on and let's see. And of course, that back then all you could get was channel 3, channel 5 sometimes, because that was farther away. 11 and 13, so we could watch PBS. NBC, ABC, and CBS, and all that was on during the day was soaps. Yeah. Or Sesame Street on PBS, I think. Or something like that. Yeah. And I know what I always lusted after, when we go to driving along the interstate and go to an actual truck stop, is I'd lust after the 12-volt VCRs, and I totally wanted one, but man, they were like $250 or something. They're designed to be mounted in a semi-truck, but I always wanted one, and I was going to build, because I had that nice, that center console built, and I was like, well, I could just remake that and stick it in there, and then we could watch, whatever, on any Sunday or something, in like 10-minute increments over lunch hour or something. but no, like I said, it was just too expensive at the time, and that's something I always wanted. It was a VCR. It was a VCR there because I wanted. It's like I got every type at the time. I thought it was like I could have every type of media. We got good radio. 8-track, cassette tape, and CD. MP3s weren't a thing yet. And then TV, and then for over the air, and then recorded media like VHS tape of something. But
that reminds me of a story about one of my speakers.
Which car would this be?
That would have been the Ranger, because I had 4 6x9 MTXs, right? And then my sub box was
It probably would have been an MTX. Probably something you bought at Video. Probably something you bought at Video Kingdom or whatever.
Well, okay, I take that back. Maybe because I had different pairs of speakers. I think you're right. I think the box was actually MTX. I had two 8-inch subs, but it was an expensive brand, whatever it was. It was $100 for a pair, and there was two pairs.
Well, I remember in our day the brands to have were MTX, Rockford Fosgate, and I think like Infinity, which I know. They're still around, but those were the premium brands that everyone wanted. I don't even think we knew about like JL and those at the time, but
well, whoever it was, because I bought the box from downtown. I bought the subs from downtown.
Not Video Kingdom up there on
the hill? No. Midwest Audio. I bought the subs from Midwest Audio, and then I did buy the speakers from Video Kingdom, and so what's kind of interesting about the story or getting into it. So, it's a littler stereo system. I mean, it's a little bit of money, but it's a littler stereo system, and I listen to a lot of metal. And I was listening to Metallica on my way to work. I don't remember exactly what song. I just remember it being Metallica. And I'm just going on down the road, and all of a sudden I hear the speaker just blow out, and it sounds like crap after that. And I've had these speakers for 8 months, and it had a year warranty on them, and so I ripped the speaker out and put it back in the box because I still had all this stuff, and I took it back to Video Kingdom, and I said, the speaker's blown, I want replacements. And so they wrote up the information for the warranty, and they got the new speakers out, and then the guy goes, okay, so what happened to these speakers that we have to warranty them? And I said, well, I was just listening to my music and they blew out. And he writes that down, and then he's like, okay, so what happened to these speakers? And I told him, I said, I was listening to my music and they blew out. And he goes, no. He goes, I've already written this down for warranty. We've already got that. He goes, these speakers don't just blow out. What'd you do to these speakers that it blew out? And I looked at him and I said, I was listening to my music on my way to work and they blew out. And he's like, fine, don't tell me then. I'm just like, dude, I'm not lying.
Well, see, he probably figures, a bunch of high school kids, would hook up like me, put 1,000 watts to a speaker that, has like a 250 watt max RMS or something like that. But
I can't remember if they might have been JBLs now that I think about it. I don't know. They weren't like top of the line, but they weren't cheap either. And they were like $100 for a set, and I bought two of them. I do remember that. But yeah, he couldn't believe that you could just blow a speaker like that.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. Back in the day, you had to go to the store and do that. Yeah, you bring up Midwest Audio, and was it them? And Video Kingdom, they had those sound rooms, and I don't know if they, I haven't been into an audio shop in forever, and maybe they still do this, but I just remember we used to just go in there just to test drive the speakers, and you'd crank it up, and you'd be in that soundproof booth and just crank each one and the subs and everything,
Yep.
and that oh well, kind of speaking of that, you got to remember, LJ, that K5 Blazer kid, he had what I can't remember the brand, but I know there were 15s and I forget the amperage on the watt, but that thing was rusted out. I mean, barely, on a good day it might run, kind of thing, but he had all his money in the subwoofers, and a band pass box. And I tell you, that thing with all the rust and everything, when he just cranked that up, it was like a cloud of dust and dirt and everything, and then the fiberglass top, because that's the kind where you can take it off, everything would just become vibrating, just, it sounded horrible going down the road. Competition, you don't want that to happen, but it was just, one of those things that, I always wanted to go to one of those competitions. I went to one, I didn't compete or nothing, I wasn't into that, but it's like, just to me, it gets a little crazy because it's like, well, some of them, they're just for SPL, and it's like, well, you can't even sit in it, it'll kill you, it can kill you, kind of, or in a way. And then the vehicle isn't, isn't drivable, isn't really usable.
Yeah.
But yeah. Man, like I said, we weren't really audiophiles that way, but it just seems like, I don't know, it seems like it was bigger then than it is now, but maybe it's just because we're older and kind of out of the scene. But it just doesn't seem like kids, well, and I know cars today are harder to just put a head unit in. You can, it's not that it doesn't happen, but I just don't know if, kids are into that. I think the earbuds or the Beats by Dre headphones and stuff is the way they want. And granted, those are great, I don't know if the Beats are great, but there's good headphones. So why do you need, a banging system in your car or even in the house? That was the thing, is I always like to have a nice setup in my house, But yeah. I don't even know if that's a thing for like kids today in their cars specifically, like we used to. There was a little bit of street cred to have this or that in there, and have a good sounding system, and then of course be able to afford the CDs to play in it.
Well, there's still a few running around. The only reason I know that is because where I live, there's a parking lot where the high school kids like to go sit a few blocks away.
So they still do. You
can hear them. Yeah, you can hear them during the summer still. But I was also gonna say, because I've been kind of hemming and hawing. I got a Chevy Impala now, and I've been kind of hemming and hawing whether I want to add a sub to that or not. The stereos that you get today in cars are a lot better than what we used to get back in from the factory.
Well, you're right.
We used to get.
You're right on that, because and maybe that's part of it, is you don't need to immediately run out and replace the head unit. Yeah, you're right. Now that I think about it, that's probably the case, because even my newest car here, which isn't even that new, but it's it's in the aughts. It's got quote unquote infinity speakers. It's probably their cheapest whatever, but it sounds really good. Put the CD in, or I use an MP3, and yeah, it's actually. It's got some thump to it when you want it, but
it's got enough thump, but it doesn't have a sub thump.
Well, yeah, it's not like that, but I guess getting older and everything, I don't need to feel it in my chest anymore. Yeah, crank it up in one of my other vehicles when it's just me sometimes. And yeah, once in a while, it's like I'd like to feel that again, pretend like I'm 19 again, but, yeah, I don't know. I guess that's just getting older, but, well, it's good to hear that the kids are still, doing that, because that's what we did, because, well, you didn't have social media, didn't have all that to just or instant entertainment. That was your entertainment.
Yeah.
Maybe we'll say, maybe we'll save that for another time, talking about the cruising days,
Yeah.
Our version of American Graffiti, I guess you could say. Because there's some to talk about that, and some of these cars will come back in those stories, because the reason we remember these cars is because there's some good memories attached to it. So I don't know, we're coming up on kind of an hour, and that's about how long I wanted to make these podcasts. So if you like this podcast, please subscribe, ring that notification bell so you know when these videos go live. And how can we follow you, Skull? What platforms are you on?
Well, I'm on Twitch. You can follow me at SkullKrusher52X. I'm also on YouTube. I believe that's Skull52EX.
I'll have some links in the description. But you're also on Instagram as Skull52EX as well. I'll have links in the descriptions where you can follow all of us. And we kind of want to make this a regular deal. So if you liked it, leave a like on this video. Leave a comment. And if you made it this far into the video, leave a comment down there of your favorite car or favorite memory in a car, even if you didn't own it. I'd love to hear about it, and you know what? If you got some questions or topics or something you want to ask us, leave it in the comments. We might answer your question, and we plan on doing some of these live, so be watching out for that. And I guess we'll wrap this up and say, this is the Shifting Gears podcast. If you can't find them, grind them.